Hello everyone and good evening. I'm Don Arleth and welcome to tonight's edition of Flash News. Unparliamentary behavior in the Polish parliament. The opposition tried to block the debate during which the bill called For Life was supposed to be discussed. One of the Civic Coalition politicians got aggressive and pushed a member of Law and Justice. This mirrors the atmosphere after the Constitutional Tribunal's verdict on abortion. Since then, protests have broken out in cities across Poland.
The decision of the Constitutional Tribunal was commented by Deputy Prime Minister and Chairman of Law and Justice Jarosław Kaczyński, who also appealed for the defense of Polish churches. The decision is fully constitutional. Moreover, in the light of the Constitution, a different judgment in this case could not be made. Churches are being attacked. Considering the scale, those attacks are something new in the history of Poland. We must defend Polish churches. We must defend them at any cost. In the Sejm, the assumptions of the program For Life were discussed. The opposition wanted to block the session. During a brawl, Sławomir Nitras, member of parliament from the Civic Coalition, attacked Wiesław Krajewski, member of Law and Justice. Mr. Nitras tries to provoke us as usual, and I'm glad that I did not let myself be provoked. Despite the attempts to silence speakers, the Deputy Minister of Family and Social Policy took the floor. He commented on the decision of the Constitutional Tribunal demonstrating the unconstitutionality of abortion in the case of seriously ill and handicapped children. Finally, we feel that no one refuses the right to live because of a disability. Law and Justice announces the expansion of the For Life program supporting families with disabled children. To fight for dignity, we must first of all be able to live. Abortion is allowed in the most difficult cases.
Now back to the hot topic of COVID-19. According to the latest data from the Ministry of Health, over 16,000 new cases of coronavirus in Poland were reported over the last 24 hours. 132 people have died and 66,000 tests were carried out.
In hospitals, patients suffering from COVID-19 occupy more than 13,000 out of more than 20,000 available beds. Each voivodeship has a temporary hospital. The one on the National Stadium is being built at an express pace. The temporary hospital in Warsaw is to become functional within the upcoming days, maybe a week. Remote teaching in schools, which has been introduced since Monday, is to limit the growth of infections. Restricting mobility is necessary to limit the growth of coronavirus infections and to allow us to return to schools and universities as early as possible. Thanks to the activities of the Ministry of Education and the Ministry of Digitization, the schools were equipped with computers which make it much easier for teachers to conduct classes remotely. At the moment, we are dealing with such a system that a teacher, either from school or from his or her home, if he or she is in quarantine, will be conducting lessons. The government has donated over 350 million zlotys to local governments for this purpose.
The epidemic situation in Europe continues to deteriorate. Worldwide, the coronavirus has already infected 44 million people. More countries are tightening restrictions, and a curfew will be in force in the Czech Republic starting on Wednesday.
People will not be able to leave their houses between 9 p.m. and 5 a.m. During this time, the Czechs can expect police controls on the streets. Restrictions on traveling at night will not apply to traveling to work or going for a walk with a dog. The situation is also worrying in Germany. The hospitals are struggling with the lack of medical staff. Due to the increasing number of infections, Chancellor Angela Merkel calls for stricter restrictions. Russia has already decided on similar steps. From midnight on, there will be a ban on night events and shows. The sanitation services have obliged the police to tighten safety controls. The main aim is to wear protective masks.
Airlines and airports are suffering due to the pandemic. The International Airport Council of Europe warns that nearly 200 European airports are at risk of insolvency if passenger traffic is not restored by the end of the year.
At least 193 European airports are at risk, the activity of which has an impact on the maintenance of 277,000 jobs and contributes to the annual GDP growth of the European Union by nearly 12.5 billion euros. Small regional airports with less than 5 million passengers a year are at an even greater risk. However, they also have greater difficulties. The debt of the 20 largest airports is estimated at around 16 billion euros. This is almost 60% of their annual pre-pandemic revenue. According to data from the International Airport Council, passenger traffic at European airports was 73% lower in September compared to the same month last year. This means that more than 172 million passengers stayed at home.
Tropical storm Zeta hit the east coast of Mexico. It is expected to reach Category 1 hurricane strength as it crosses the Gulf of Mexico. Zeta is on track to make landfall on the eastern Louisiana coastline. Residents in Louisiana are still on edge, as many are still recovering from the effects of hurricanes Laura and Delta over just the last 2 months.
Heavy rainfall is expected on the Yucatan Peninsula, the Cayman Islands and western Cuba. It may lead to flooding in urban areas. The element may also disrupt oil production in the bay. The local company has already started to evacuate its personnel and close down its extraction platforms. The authorities in Yucatan called on tourists and residents not to leave their homes and hotels. Hurricane Zeta is the 27th tropical cyclone in the Gulf of Mexico this year, which was given its own name.
Wildfires continue to wreak havoc in California. 2 violent wind-fueled fires forced 100,000 people to evacuate in Orange County. Additionally, tens of thousands are without electricity.
Well, with most of these fires, the wind is the biggest problem. So Mother Nature controls that, so we just try to do what we can. But yeah, the wind's going to be what controls and dictates what happens with most of these fires.
Southeast of Los Angeles, the fire destroyed more than 1,600 hectares. 500 firefighters tried to stop the inferno. Due to the strong wind, the planes were unable to get in action. Investigators are investigating the cause of the fire. Unusually high temperatures, low humidity and strong winds in California forced a stoppage of power supply. This was to reduce the risk of damage to electrical systems.
Here's a bit of breaking news straight from outer space. NASA scientists claim that there is water on the moon. This will increase the chances for more thorough space exploration and perhaps even a permanent station on the lunar surface.
The moon is covered with small craters. Water was never found on their surface. Too much sunlight is reaching them. However, the sun does not reach the poles. There is water inside of them, a discovery made by NASA scientists.
Scientifically, it's interesting because we weren't expecting water. We weren't guessing that water could survive in the sunlit part of the moon. And so thinking about how did it get there and how did it survive is an interesting scientific question that tells us something about the history of the moon.
The last time man was on the moon was half a century ago. However, there was no chance for a proper search and research. Man needs water, air and so on. The water must be in place and the water is very heavy. If we were to carry it with man, it would be really a very expensive undertaking. This is a breakthrough message in the context of the mission plan for 2024, in which man is to return to the silver globe.
New York's Metropolitan Museum of Art is celebrating its 150th birthday. A unique exposition was created for this occasion titled About Time, Fashion and Duration, which presents the linear and cyclical character of fashion over the last 150 years.
The exhibition is divided into 2 parts. One reflects the linear character of fashion, the other shows its cyclicality. Almost all creations are in black to emphasize the changes in the figure. The inspiration for the creators was the firm Orlando, based on the Virginia Woolf book. It is the text of the English writer that serves as a guide to the topic of the exhibition. Hungary is moving towards clean energy. This is to be supported by sidewalks made of photovoltaic cells tested in the city of Komárom. Such a sidewalk consists, among others, of tiles made of tempered and non-slip glass. The panels are supposed to withstand not only the weight of pedestrians, but even of a car. The sidewalk in this case will power street lighting. And this is another innovation, this time concerning public transport. According to the creators of Urban Loop, their project is to be an antidote to the crowded city streets. In Lorraine, such a solution could start operating in 4 years. The passenger chooses the destination on the phone, scans the code and without touching anything, sits in an electrical capsule. The journey takes place without any stops, traffic jams or negative environmental impact. Risky, blood-chilling but fully planned. Such a jump was made by the former British parachutist John Bream. From the helicopter, he threw himself from a height of 40 meters directly into the sea off the coast of Hayling Island in Hampshire, without any protection whatsoever. After hitting the water, the daredevil lost consciousness for a short period of time. Nothing serious happened to him, although it is difficult to say if fame is worth such a huge risk.
And that's all the time we have tonight. Thank you for joining us here on Flash News, and I'll see you again next time. Good night.